Welcome back to Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I am thrilled that you're here, and you do not want to miss this episode. Okay, I'm interviewing one of my best friends, Kevin Bupp. And Kevin and I, if you don't know who he is, have so much history together. In fact, he's the reason I have this freaking podcast. I remember he reached out to me, I don't know, what, 8, 9, how long have you been?
I've been doing my podcast for 10 years
10
now.
years ago,
Yeah.
and said, hey, he reached out to me 10 years ago and said, do you want to do a podcast? I'm like, at that time, it wasn't video. It was like on a phone. I'm like, hell no, I can't sit there on a phone and talk into a podcast. Now, of course, it's video, but he's the reason I did this one. And anyway, it's great to have you here, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah,
good to see you as always.
Yeah, it's been way too long.
The fact that you say 10 years, I say 10 years, I
Holy
mean, like,
crap.
I don't think half the people probably listening right now knew what a podcast was 10 years ago.
Right. God, I can't. So what's the name of you've still 2 or 1?
They're both out there. One that I do on a regular basis, Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow.
Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow. And you were like number 1 or 2 for a long time.
I was, and there was an Apple blip, years back, and I never found my way back to the top.
Me too. Same thing.
And then we have the Mobile Home Park Investing Show. I ran that show for about 3 years, recorded 140 or so episodes, and it was too much.
Yeah.
So it's out there.
It's out there. It's
still
great
relevant.
information.
It's still relevant. It still literally gets a lot of downloads on a regular basis. I mean, it's got 1,000 plus 5-star reviews. I mean, it's information that can be used, but we're not producing new content for it.
Gotcha. Well, check out his podcast because you do all asset classes on that podcast,
That's right?
Yep. Where this one, I'm starting to do more of that and bring in other stuff just to change things up a little bit. But you guys obviously know that my focus is multifamily. So anyway, it's been years since you've been on the show, right?
It has. I think probably during COVID at some point.
COVID? Oh, really?
I was trying to look
right.
back and find the date.
Yeah.
I know you were on my show during COVID. I just don't recall when I was on your show. But it's definitely it's been a few years.
Well, let's just pretend we've never interviewed. And why don't you give the listeners just a little background on who you are and what you do, because you've done a lot of different things. Yeah. And so let's start there. I mean, we've got so much history. I was there when you met your wife. Remember that?
Yeah.
I was actually there when you met her.
It's funny. We just went to the Don Cesar a week ago for her mother's 70th birthday, and we actually had dinner out in that patio. And I haven't been to the Don. I haven't eaten there since we actually met. You met Joanna there.
That's right.
Whatever.
That's right.
17 years ago.
17
years, yeah.
Yeah, so Kevin and I actually worked together like 18, 19 years ago, 20 years ago when we were doing single-family houses. Kevin and I worked together back then.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I moved here in 2002. I met you and your brother sometime within that first year span. And so 2003 range. And fast forward, I mean, that's a long time ago.
Holy cow.
I know. 20
You've
years.
Done some amazing stuff
20
since
years.
then.
I think it's a little different. I mean, we both have a little more gray hair.
Well,
a little bit more than me. But
I have a lot more than you. Yeah, a lot more gray hair than you. But, so guys, he's a guru in the mobile home park space, but just tell your story a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I think similar to you, I mean, real estate's been most of my life. I always joke and say that real estate found me. I didn't find it back when I was 19 years old, and I lived in Pennsylvania. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so have all my family up there, and was tending bar, going to community college, having fun, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life. I was taking classes because I didn't know what else to do with my free time. And again, I didn't know where to really harness the energy and excitement I had in life because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. And but I was having fun bartending. I was making good money there. And during that time, I met a girl. I started dating a girl. And that girl, her name's Jessica. Her mother had recently gone through a divorce. And she started dating a guy by the name of David. And David happened to be a local real estate investor. And so just going to visit her, at her mom's home. She was going to school as well and lived at home. And I became friends with David over a period of a couple of months. Just got to know him. And one of the things that really stuck out with David was that I grew up in my mom and dad were wonderful, but very blue collar family. Both parents worked. My mom worked like a third shift because we couldn't really afford a babysitter. So they kind of switched up their shifts. My mom and dad didn't see each other that much during the week. But we never went without. We had Christmas happened, one vacation a year, but didn't have a lot of excesses. We didn't have a lot of extra. Always there was always money struggles. There was always car payments, and just if there was any tension in our household, it was always about money. And that's just all I knew. I didn't know any business owners. My my family weren't friends with any business owners, but I met David then. And what I recognized very quickly is, number one, how he dressed was a little different. Type of car he drove was very different. And he seemingly was at my girlfriend's house, or her mother's house, during the day when most old people were supposed to be working. Like that's what really stuck out to me. And that caught my attention. So I got to have really good conversations with him. And spend quality time with him when others weren't around, just because he seemingly was there just odd times of the day. And so anyway, long story short, I didn't know much about real estate at all. Actually, I knew nothing. I had a basic understanding what his business was. He bought rental property. He bought properties, turned them into rentals, and he owned about 35 of them at that point in time.
Up in PA?
And up in Pennsylvania. He'd been doing it for 20 years. And he had a lot of flexibility in his lifestyle, and this seemingly lived a good life. And so fast forward a couple months, he invited me to a conference down in Philadelphia. Ron LeGrand.
Ron LeGrand.
Ron LeGrand. Wow. So David had bought a whatever $3,000 conference for him and his business partner. His business partner couldn't go. And he said, "Hey, you want to come with me to this thing? Lots of information over 3 days. Lots of people that are doing big things." And again, I didn't understand what I was getting myself into, what I was raising my hand for. But I was like, well, shit. He just spent $3,000.
Right.
I got to pay for it. It's a 2-hour drive to Philadelphia in a hotel room. I'm like, I'm in.
Right.
Let's go. Let's do this thing. And so, you remember Ron LeGrand? I mean,
guys, if you don't know who Ron LeGrand is, he's been around forever. He's funny because he's very crusty.
Oh, he is crusty.
He is a crusty old guy. And in fact, one of the things that I teach that I got from him was a negotiation tactic. Let me share the negotiation tactic with you. So, when someone gives you what you want to do when you're talking to a seller or buying anything for that matter is you say, if I could close right away, what's the least you'd take? And regardless of the answer, even if you want to do backflips because the price is so good, you go, is that the best you can do? Now, I will tell you that phrase has made me millions, myself, and that came from Ron LeGrand. But kudos to Ron LeGrand.
It's uncomfortable. That scenario is uncomfortable. But I agree. It gets you some great deals. No, it's what's the lowest you could take if I paid cash and closed quickly?
Oh, that's what it was. If I pay cash and close quickly, okay.
So fast forward, I went to this seminar and I met a lot of people that were doing, in my mind, just huge things. It was basically wholesaling or learning to fix and flip homes. That was what the conference was about.
Sure.
I forget what he called
it.
That's
what he teaches,
yeah. Yeah, and he had a pre-house boot camp as well.
Right.
But this was basically wholesale and fix and flip. And I met a ton of people that I didn't feel were any smarter than I. They just knew a little bit more than what I did, and they were doing seemingly big things, talking about wholesale checks of $5 and $10K a piece, or making 30, 40, 50 grand on flipping houses. And I was overwhelmingly excited, and spent the 3 days there. Came back home, and knew that if I didn't put that excitement to use and do something with it, that it would just fizzle out, and I'd go back to tending bar and meeting girls and having fun, right? But so I basically went to David. He was about 25 years older than I, and I just made him an offer. I basically went to him and asked if I could help him in his business. Like literally, in between classes. I had classes 3 days a week. I was only taking 12 credits, so I had a lot of free time, and I didn't tend bar until 7:00 at night. Is when I went in. So I basically went and worked for him for free for about 14 months.
Wow!
And just whatever he needed, whether it was pick up coffee. Go to Home Depot, get some supplies because my contractor forgot a couple 2x4s, drop off leases, pick up leases, anything, return a couple calls. It didn't matter. I basically went and worked for him just so I could be around him and hear how he did.
Guys, this is what we call a clue. Okay? All right, keep going.
Yeah. So that was the start of it. So I got to be around his network. So again, there's power in proximity, as you like to say, right? His network was already there. He had established it over 20 years. And so I got introduced to private lenders that he had established relationships with, realtors that were, back then, realtors that understood the investment world were few and far between.
Right.
So he had a few that you could make multiple offers. They'd actually submit them for you, lowball offers and things. So he introduced me to all these people in his network that were critical. And, and so fast forward, I had $7,000 of bartender money I had saved up and found a property in a really rough neighborhood in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and bought that first investment property, used all $7,000 plus the private lender that he had hooked me up with to help fund the purchase and the renovation. And that was it. However, I would say that there was a small wrinkle. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. His wheel was basically buy and hold.
Right.
Right. I know that's what you've always preached as well. Buy and hold, buy and hold. And
I hate most properties I've ever sold, but you know,
I agree with you. I agree with you. However, one wrinkle in that plan was that I used all the money I had, and that $300 a month of cash flow that I was going to receive was going to take quite a bit of time before I could save up enough money to go do another deal. And and I just didn't have a deep enough relationships yet to truly use OPM or other people's money. And so I morphed it to, wholesaling a few homes, keeping one. And I did that up there for about 2 years. And then I moved down to Florida, and that's when I met, luckily met you and your brother.
Me,
and,
it's all downhill since then. But
so, fast forward to where we're at today. Started buying mobile home parks in 2011. I know you and I looked at them.
We were going to work together at one time. You were teaching mobile home park investing to people. Went to one of your seminars, and remember doing bus tour with you in Florida.
Oh, that's right.
It was in Orlando.
Yep, it's one of our parks.
And I used the example of that park there in Orange something. It was
Orange City.
Orange City. And I use that example because it's a great example for a ninja trick for finding deals, because you found that deal through a residential broker.
That's right.
Because guys, here's a little trick for finding deals. If a person that owns well, in this case a mobile home park, but even like a multifamily 10, 20, 30, 40 unit, if they worked with a realtor when they bought their home, they very often will go to that realtor to sell their multifamily property, or in Kevin's case, a mobile home park, who haven't, and they'll take the listing, but they haven't got a clue what to do with it. So they'll throw it in the residential MLS where nobody's looking for mobile home parks or multifamily.
That's right.
And you can get great deals that way if you develop a relationship in the market that you're interested in with a residential broker or agent and say, hey, if a multifamily deal shows up, or in Kevin's case, a mobile home park, or whatever other asset class you're looking for, and it shows up, let me know right away. You'll get the commission. Maybe I'll bonus you as well. And you'll find deals, I tell you, that you won't find otherwise. In fact, this happened to my brother up in Georgia. He bought a farm that was listed in the wrong place and got a screaming deal on it because it was listed in the residential MLS. So
most of residential MLS, whatever the regional organization that kind of oversees it, most of them have a commercial division that people don't know. I mean, and you can and sometimes you can access it through, if you go to like Century 21's website in that local region like Tampa Bay, you might be able to find like an actual portal to the commercial side. So they have their own commercial division. Most of them do. It's not tied to LoopNet or Crexi or any of the other popular sites where commercial gets listed. And so, so to your point, that was one day we found out. The very first park I ever bought was in a similar manner. It was on LoopNet. However, it was listed by a residential agent. He was 2 hours away, didn't know a thing. He had never listed a commercial property before. The listing was horrific. It had missing information left and right, no financials whatsoever.
Right.
But it was a screaming deal. It was an absolute home run.
And guys, when you find a listing like that that's got little or no information, get excited, because everyone else gives up at that point, okay? And if you dig deeper, you can find screaming deals. So so my listeners know how successful you've been, how many pads have you owned so far? I mean, you've probably sold some, bought some.
Yeah, so we've sold quite a bit over the last like 3 years. But I mean, at present time, we've got about 3,300 lots.
Okay.
And then so outside of mobile home parks, we also own parking. And so we have, I think, just over 2,000. I guess you could say parking stalls, or however you want to categorize that. But
so you've done mobile home parks and parking lots.
Correct.
Okay.
Parking garages and parking lots.
Parking garages and lots. Okay.
Yep. But I think we've gone full cycle at this point in time on 16 mobile home parks.
So you've bought and sold. By the way, full cycle, guys, means bought and sold. So you've bought and sold 16 mobile home parks.
Regret probably 12 of those 16.
Selling 12 of them. You regret it?
Well, wow. I mean, as you know, your brother Al, him and I own a number of parks together, and we sold our last couple just a couple of years ago, and probably the last ones that we sold were the biggest regrets.
Really?
Should have absolutely kept them. Phenomenal markets.
Wow.
Do the cash out refinance forever, and just they're not making new mobile home parks, especially in phenomenal markets. That was in the Raleigh-Durham market. I mean, irreplaceable.
Yeah, nobody wants mobile home parks in their backyard, so you just really can't build them anymore. My brother Albert worked with Kevin for a long time and still owns some parks, I think. Maybe he's cashed out.
No, we sold the last couple
so he's out too. He's completely out. I didn't know that. Wow. That's crazy. So, wow. So what do you actively do? You're still buying parks. You just bought a really big one. I was asking you
We
about before we
did,
started
yeah.
recording.
At the end of last year, we bought the largest single asset we've ever purchased, as far as I guess sheer size.
Right.
738 lots.
Holy
So it was
cow.
a beast. I
That's
mean, basically a
monster.
city.
Wow.
Bought that at the end of last year, and last
Where
year was
at, by the
Fort
way?
Wayne, Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good
so
market.
Last year was a great year for us. We actually did just shy of $100 million of acquisitions last
Wow.
year, and in a time when a lot of others weren't buying. And I think that was the opportunity for us. Like that particular deal, it's owned in a market where all of our biggest competitors, Sun Communities, ELS, Yes Communities,
These are big mobile home park competitors.
publicly
guys. Mhm.
traded companies. They all own the large assets in that marketplace. But they were pencils down last year. Stock prices were down.
Pencils down means they're not buying.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so like we the vacuum in the marketplace was there, and
You're-
we took advantage of it. So the seller that owned it was a larger institutional seller. They had some liquidity issues on other projects, and we're exiting out a few of the projects, and we were there to, accept the opportunity.
Hello. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I mean, anyway.
So on that note, let's shift to a minute, and guys, don't leave. We're going to talk about some amazing stuff here, so don't leave. On that note, economically, are you seeing? You're in mobile home parks. I'm in multifamily. We are seeing a hit in the multifamily space right now. First of all, there's a lot of operators that got bridge debt. My ex-partner, got me into a couple as well. I'm struggling with some of those as well. Doing loan mods and everything else. But there's a lot of guys in serious trouble.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that with parks? Probably not, huh?
Not so much, and I don't think bridge debt, like formal bridge debt, was as prevalent in our sector.
Right.
I mean, when I say that we got a bridge loan in place, typically what that means to me and a lot of other operator spaces, we're going to get a bank loan. It's a 5-year loan.
Right.
With a probably 25-year AM, no balloon.
Right.
5-year, it's going to either reset or it might balloon more than
Might
likely,
balloon,
but.
right.
That's typically what we use as bridge debt. Like we're closing a loan next week. It's a local bank. Right now, the property is not exactly there for agency debt. Like we'll be able to get it there in about 3 years, pretty safely.
Right.
And so we're putting a bank loan on.
So
we've got
guys,
5
just so
years.
you know, agency debt is Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and they're the largest. And I don't even know if they actually do the lending, but it's a little complicated. But they're government related, and with that debt, it's typically non-recourse, meaning if they foreclose, they can't come after you personally. They just take the property. But so primarily it's bank debt with mobile home parks. Yes.
No, I mean 90% of what we typically buy is agency.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, unless it's not there today. Like if maybe it doesn't have the right occupancy, or agency lenders don't like park-owned homes. When the park actually owns the homes, and so if it has more than, they've got a couple different thresholds, but normally if it's got more than 25% of the units in there that are park-owned homes, they won't do the deal. And so in this instance, that is the case.
Okay.
It's about 40% park-owned home right now, and I know that we can sell off at least 15% over the next 3 years very comfortably and get it to the threshold that will make them happy. And by far, agency loans, it's the best terms that exist.
Sure.
Best rates, best amortization terms.
Right.
It's fixed for 10 years, sometimes up to 12 years.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So it's hands down.
You
It's
ever
the
get
best.
any interest only in the first
Interest
few
only.
years?
So if you
Okay.
do a 10-year term, I think now they're starting to loosen up a little bit, but the quotes that we've seen recently, we're only doing 5-year loans right now. Even on agency, we're only doing 5-year
I see,
loans.
just because you want to be able to get out and with the prepayment.
I don't have a crystal ball, but I feel as though
rates are coming down.
that rates will come down at some point in the next 5 years,
Yeah,
right? And
agreed.
so I don't want to
Agreed.
lock in for 10 years and be stuck with that and have a major prepayment penalty.
Yeah, so guys, when you do the longer terms, you'll have what's called step-down prepayment. It's really what's called yield maintenance and defeasance, but it's a prepayment penalty, bottom line. And sometimes it's like 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1 over a period of time. That's the percentage of the loan that you're going to pay, and it is big
expensive.
money.
Yeah.
Big money. And so, no, that's really prudent, honestly.
Yeah, a lot of times it would probably wreck the economics of the deal if you
Right.
had to get out of it early.
Right. Right.
More than likely, if you model that in and say, hey, I might have to get out year 7, more than likely it's going to be a very hefty fee that's going to
Right.
really crush the returns on the
Right.
property. So anyway, so now we're just mostly doing 5-year, mostly agency, but again, bank loans if it doesn't qualify for agency, and then look to recap it at the end of that 5-year mark. And
Nice.
and then if it's a property we want to keep long term, if it's going as expected, at that point we'll have to put 10-year debt on it if the rates make sense.
Just for my own edification, sorry guys, this question is a little technical. For conforming debt, don't they have to have like sidewalks and paved roads? Because a lot of mobile home parks don't. And what about the utility component?
That's right.
Because a lot of these parks have antiquated utilities. Some even have like sewage ponds. What do they call them? Lagoons.
Oh, lagoons, yeah.
Lagoons.
Yeah,
And,
it's like a big cesspool.
Yeah, big cesspool, exactly. I mean, we've seen it all. But what are their requirements in that regard as it relates to the roads, the streets, the paving, and the services?
So the industry has changed quite a bit. So when you and I were looking at the stuff back in like 2009 and 10, the agency lenders would only lend on the primo. I mean, literally sidewalks, curbs.
Oh, I got you.
All double wides. They had to have certain
gotcha.
setbacks. I mean, they had to have beautiful like pole lights throughout the community. It's just a clubhouse. They only wanted the primo assets because that's all they really understood. They didn't really understand the rest of the asset class.
So it's relaxed since then.
It's relaxed quite a bit. To where they'll even lend on. I mean, they're not as loosey-goosey as maybe like a CMBS lender or a local bank might be. So long as it's majority tenant-owned homes, they don't really care about the utilities, whether they're private or public.
Oh, they don't.
They don't care about that.
By the way, guys, that's a red flag that you want to be really careful of if you're going to think about investing in mobile home parks. Is if the utilities are private. I remember you always told me you always had an alternative plan.
There's got to be a connection nearby.
Yeah, connection nearby in case the sewage went out or in case the well went out. Because if one of those things happens, everybody has to move because they don't have utilities. You better have a freaking backup plan if it's private utilities like well and septic, or even a sewage plant maybe. I don't know.
And even we go more granular than that because even if you can quickly look up and see what the closest sewer line might be, municipal sewer line, but you got to go a lot deeper than that because it doesn't mean that you can actually connect into it. While you might be able to, and there might be fees, but there also might be other restrictions. Like there's an instance in Maryland where we're right near the city. We're in the county, but we're across the street from the city.
Okay.
And that's where the sewer line is.
Okay.
But they want us to what's the terminology?
Pay impact fees, or
not pay impact fees, but they basically want to absorb the community into the city, which will basically triple our tax. Annex. I'm sorry.
Okay, they want to annex it.
They want to annex.
Get taxation.
They will force us to annex in.
Oh wow!
In order to get, and our taxes will triple.
Wow.
And so
that doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Yeah,
it doesn't work. I mean, maybe it works sometime down the road, but it doesn't work for us. And so,
And
so we have septics in that community. And when we bought it, we knew that was a problem.
Okay.
And we actually underwrote as though we might not ever be able to get connected. And these septics are old, and we even underwrote to where if we lose a septic a year for the next 20 years, does the deal still make sense? And so we went pretty deep.
Got it.
In the event we can't get connected.
Sure.
In Maryland, they're pretty strict about septics. You literally cannot put new septics in.
Oh, you can't?
No, because of the Chesapeake watershed. There's all these restrictions throughout the entire state, and so they're trying to eradicate septics across the board.
Oh wow.
So anyway, you got to go pretty deep with due diligence.
Wow, that's
the
crazy.
Infrastructure is the killer in these things.
Right, infrastructure is
really
it, guys. It was for my own edification.
We just killed a 3-park portfolio about 2 months ago. And we went really deep. And on the outside looking in, they were in great markets, Kalamazoo, Michigan. So lots of growth happening in that immediate area. From the outside looking in, they were a little rough around the edges, but easily fixable, right?
Okay.
Just aesthetic improvements. We got engineers involved. We sewer scoped all the sewer lines, three communities, about 400 sites in total. Did full blown inspections on all the well systems, and it's the worst condition I've ever seen. We actually killed the deal. The infrastructure was so bad in all 3 communities. The sewer lines were, there was gaps and joints missing and multitude of locations throughout all of the communities. Just to the extent of it would have been multi-million dollars of additional capital that we hadn't budgeted for. Even if they would have given us the deal for that much of a reduction, it wouldn't have been worth the brain damage.
No,
but long story short, we spent about $100,000 on due diligence,
guys,
and we're eating the cost.
Yeah, you eat that. I mean, guys, the reason you do due diligence is sometimes the best deal is the one you don't do.
That's right.
Like he just
$100,000 or $3 million.
Exactly,
unexpected.
And brain damage for
brain damage.
Years.
It would have drained all the resources from our operational team.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't worth the energy.
Right. Wow. So what's next? I know you got another mobile home park under contract, which is awesome. You're raising money for one of those, and you're. But I do want to shift gears to another reason we wanted to get together.
Yeah.
So guys, you don't know this, but I founded a 501c3 charity. So. And I don't really talk about it on this show that much. So I'm going to give you a little background real quick before we talk about why I wanted to talk to Kevin today. So, when I was hell bent on making a lot of money, hell bent on proving to the world I was good enough. I got picked on in school. Everybody's gone through this stuff. I had to prove to the world I was good enough. And, I built this literally what's now a $25 million house on the beach. It's literally right behind me across the bay here. It gets kind of funny. And I worked for it for 20 years. And I moved in. So I worked for this for 20 years. I moved in 2 months after I moved in. And this house is magnificent. Let me describe it, okay? It's a Gulf to Bay. I own the beach on one side. I had my boats on the backside. It's like a slice through an island. And I worked for it for 20 years. The big waterfall from the second floor balcony to the pool. You had to walk through the waterfall to get to the pool. Big spiral staircase up through the middle of the house, wine cellar, elevator. On the second floor, I had aquariums that I built that cost me almost $200,000 to go around the staircase. So this gives you an idea of the house. Anyway, 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night, and I got depressed. And I don't mean a little depressed. I mean like holy shit depressed. And, I talk about this when I talk about goals. How you should never achieve a big goal without having other goals lined up behind it. Well, that was one of the pieces of this, okay? The other thing is, it's never about the freaking goals. Happiness comes from progress and growth, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. And that's the year I went and saw Tony Robbins, because I'm like, I got to figure this out. I went and bought some books, and one of them was Tony's book. So I went, and this is 25 years ago, okay? And I went to see Tony in Fort Lauderdale. I was blown away. I spent another 20 years following him around just because I was so impressed with his methodology, his teaching, and his coaching, and he was a big mentor of mine. But I found that he fed families for the holidays. And that really resonated with me. It's like, I'd never done anything for anybody else. I'm embarrassed to admit that. I was 40 at the time. And so I went home and I called my brother Ed, who lived in Denver, because I was already here in Florida, and I was going back for Thanksgiving. I said, Ed, let's feed 5 families. Let's just have some fun, feed 5 families. And so he called his church, found 5 families that really needed help. And we went and had a lot of fun buying the food, frozen turkey, roasting pan, toys for the kids if they had them. And the third family changed my life. We go up to this like a row house where it's like 4 units, like a fourplex, but they were straight shots through to the back. So it was like a 1-bedroom, but it was a shitty 1-bedroom because you had to walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen, which had the bathroom off of it. And there was a Hispanic woman in there with 5 kids. And she comes out and she sees all this food and stuff on the porch, and she starts crying. Her kids come out, 2 of the older ones start crying. I start crying, and I was freaking hooked. And so the next year I fed 50 families. Mm-hmm. Next year after that I fed 100 families. So this was always for Christmas or Thanksgiving. So I doubled it every year, 50, then 100, then I did 200, then I did 400, then I did 800, and then I did 1,600. I did 1,600 in 2008, and you all know what happened to me in 2008, right? I lost $50 million, but I paid for it all the way up to that point. And then I formed a foundation called the Tiny Hands Foundation. And now I'm humbled and proud to say that I think we've fed definitely well over 150,000 children for over the last 25 years. We've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies. We just did 2,000 6 weeks ago. Done thousands and thousands of teddy bears to the local police departments for their officers to keep in their vehicles if they encounter a child, that's been in a traumatic situation. They can comfort the child and bridge the gap. And the reason I bring all this up in front of Kevin is Kevin has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for this Tiny Hands Foundation. That's the name of my foundation, the Tiny Hands Foundation. So Kevin does this annual fundraising fun event to raise money for my foundation, as well as another one or two, if I recall.
Just one, yeah.
Yeah, so can you talk about the event?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Just backing up a little bit, buddy. I mean, seriously, just what you've put together with the Tiny Hands is truly a testament to your heart and just your willingness to give and help others. I mean, when I met you, I started volunteering and helping with the food drive every year. I had one of those moments myself. We used to go deliver. Remember, we used to deliver the baskets in person, right?
Yeah.
You go load up the back of the truck, leave the center where we were putting it all together and go deliver these things. And I had a similar encounter with a family where they were just in tears, crying and just so thankful and grateful that we had brought this to their door. And, they ultimately weren't going to have I think that year was Thanksgiving. They weren't going to have they didn't have money for a Thanksgiving meal and so it was just hugely impactful. And so, to your point, you used to fund this all yourself. You never took donations, didn't accept any outside money. And so when the crash happened, I remember it went from, you know the numbers better than I do. You went from feeding, thousands of families to, I don't know what that next year was in 08 or 09, but it was a
less.
much smaller amount.
It was
yeah,
less.
yeah. And so I'm like, shit, but I was in bad financial situation as well.
Sure, we were all
dying.
dying.
I was
Yeah,
like,
we were all
I wish
dying.
I could help. I mean, it was painful for me to watch it go from, because folks need it more than any,
Right.
more at that point in the economy than any other time, right? Like everyone was having a hard time
It was tough
economically.
for everybody, yeah.
And so in 2010 is when I got married. I got married in March of 2010. And I was still trying to find my bearings, trying to find my way and what I was going to do in this next phase of life, like
Sure.
this journey. I just got married, didn't have kids yet, but didn't feel fulfilled. And I didn't know what I was, real estate was just not on the radar at that point. I'd started a couple other businesses to pay, for the roof over my head. And I needed like a big, hairy, audacious goal. And so I decided to hop on my bike, told Joanna that I was going to hop on my bike and ride to Washington, D.C.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And so
That's
we'd
right.
only been married for a couple months.
Yeah.
And, when I proposed the idea to her, I'd never ridden my bike more than 40 miles. And I was a fairly new bike rider. And when she didn't respond back with, no, you're crazy, you're absolutely not doing that, she was like, are you serious? I knew that there was a chance that I might be able to convince her and allow me to do this. So anyway, fast forward, I about 4 months later, not that much time at all, from that moment, I rode my bike over 11 days, 1,154 miles from Florida to Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Made it, felt somewhat fulfilled for a personal goal, but felt even more empty than ever because I felt I attracted this large following and audience on Facebook. I was just documenting what I was doing. I wasn't
Right.
doing it for a
I
cause.
remember now.
But I was just more so my family and friends could like kind of keep in the loop of where the hell I was at that point in time. I didn't have much of an agenda. I literally had a paper map and
That
I was
was
just
it.
riding.
Wow.
And I was just riding. And so, and I got to the end and realized I had all these folks, like all these eyeballs that were watching, and I did it for no other good than myself. And so I felt very empty because of that. And so came back from that, was in really the best shape of my life. And I figured, well, shit, I don't have any money to help Rod and the Tiny Hands Foundation, but I got legs. And so I literally remember the day I came to your office, like, hey, I got this idea. I don't know if it's going to amount to anything, but I'm going to put together a bike ride. I'm going to go ride it next week with a friend and see if it's actually a manageable route.
Oh, so you did it in advance.
In July of
good
the
God.
summer, we
Oh,
literally,
good
me and a
God.
buddy literally rode it over 2 days.
Well,
rode it in advance.
describe where the.
Yes, we
describe-
start in Fort Myers Beach, which is on the west coast of Florida here. And then we basically ride south and then get to the bottom and then cross over the Everglades, right across the Everglades to the other side of Florida, and then head south again all the way to Key West. It's about 285 miles. And we do it over 3 days now. When I first rode it, I did over 2 days in the middle of July, which is
Holy
horrific.
crap. So all
You
the
can
way
imagine.
from Fort Myers, which is just south of me,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Key West.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So anyway, we put the event on that first year. I think I donated maybe $300 to Tiny Hands after
I don't
all said and
remember,
done. And the next year we ended up, I think had a real check of maybe 10,000. And then every year thereafter that, the third year, from the third year on, now we're on our 14th year.
14 years?
14 years.
Holy crap.
2 hurricanes canceled 2 of them. So we did
Okay.
have 2 times where we
Okay.
couldn't do it due to hurricanes. So I guess it'd be our 12th active year of actually doing the
No
ride, but
kidding.
14 years
God,
into
I
it.
had no
and,
idea it'd been that many
So it's been a lot of
times.
fun. I mean, it was one of those things where like I don't have money to help, but I got legs and like I've got my health, and so I got other people rallied about the idea. And
How
it's been a
large of
beautiful
a
thing.
group do you typically have?
So we limit it to 75 riders.
75
and I do it
riders.
because of logistics.
Right.
We're literally all rolling.
There's cars following
Oh,
you or
yeah.
trucks, and
Yep.
you got the food, and you
Yep.
got the hotels.
Yep.
Guys, if you ride a road bike, is it called a road bike?
a road bike. Yeah.
So if you ride a road bike, go to 72 hours to keywest.com. 72, the numbers, 2 hours to keywest.com, and sign up for this thing. First of all, it's a kick in the ass, okay? Second of all, you're raising money to help my foundation and something else. What's the other
starting
thing?
right now, it's an organization out of Pinellas County, and basically,
They're just St. Petersburg, Florida.
unaccompanied youth. So basically, like homeless youth that
Oh,
they
jeez.
kind of fall in the cracks of
Beautiful.
having funding and support from government localities and things like that. So
Beautiful.
it's a phenomenal. It's all self-funded as well. They don't take any government money, any funding, and so just every dollar that goes to that organization, just like Tiny Hands,
Yeah.
goes directly to to the end user, to the end folks that really need
Right.
it. So,
Yeah,
which is another impressive thing about Tiny Hands. I mean,
Thank
like
you.
there's no overhead. I mean,
No, I cover
you're-
everything.
That's it. Yeah,
I cover
your staffing
everything.
is the overhead. I mean, like and in volunteers as well. But
Exactly.
whereas if you're donating to the Red Cross or whatever it might be, like
Well, they take
maybe
30,
20 cents of every
Yeah, or
dollar
more,
might be
yeah.
going to where it really is needed.
That's right.
So
Yeah, no, I cover all the operating expenses and then some, still. But guys, so if you ride a road
Yeah.
bike, for God's sakes, check this out, okay?
it's this
It is
November. So
super
yeah,
cool.
we
It's
still
this
actually have a
November.
couple spots, and I'll make a spot for you. If you reach out through the website, even if registration's closed, if you have an interest, I will make a spot for any of the warriors that are
Okay.
listening in here
Oh,
that have an
thanks.
interest. I will make a spot for you.
Okay. So not just my 1,700 plus warriors, but any of you, if you
Yes.
are interested in riding with Kevin, wow, I can't believe you've done it 12 times. I'm
getting tired.
I'm just my brain. I just can't believe
I went and rode
it's been-
50 miles this morning before I
Did you really?
got dressed to come here.
Oh,
so
good job,
I'm
man.
trying to get my butt back in gear.
Yeah. So if you want to know more about Kevin, his website is investwithsunrise.com. I hope that you'll consider riding if you're a road biker, because what an awesome ride too, to go down the 7 mile.
It's beautiful.
7 Mile Bridge.
Go across 7 Mile Bridge.
7 Mile
There's I
Bridge.
think there's 42 or 43 actual bridges that you cross going through the Keys. You don't
Right.
realize it when you drive it. Some of them
Right.
are pretty short.
Right.
But there's 40
42
plus
bridges,
bridges
yeah.
that you cross over.
But
But
what-
the 7 Mile Bridges, that's pretty amazing.
so there's more than seven. Yeah, because 7
well,
miles
you've
didn't
got
sound like
you
long
got the
enough.
7 Mile Bridge, which is crosses Marathon.
Okay.
And it's 7 miles long. I mean,
Wow.
it's a really long bridge. But then there's roughly 40 others of
Wow.
different lengths, and so it's I mean, you've been to the Keys many times.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah,
absolutely
yeah. But
gorgeous area.
I
It's
don't know why
tropical
I thought
paradise.
that was it. It's so there's no, yeah, and the view. I mean, you're riding and you've got water on both sides. Spectacular. So, but you've raised a lot of money to help out a lot of kids, and I love you for it, brother. That means a lot. And and like I said, Kevin and I have known each other forever. I've seen his kids grow up, and just a beautiful thing. But listen, I appreciate you coming on, man, and
Appreciate you having me, man.
it's
It's
great
always
to
good to
see
see
you. It's
you.
been way too freaking long. We're both so caught up with our businesses and life, and
And that should be the
whatnot.
case, right?
I know,
Businesses are supposed to give us flexibility
hello,
to see each other more
hello.
often, right?
Well, yeah, you know what I'm going through with a former partner and a bunch
Yeah,
of nightmare stuff that I'm dealing with, but we'll get through it. It's all good. What doesn't kill you, right? So
You're the strongest guy I know, man.
Oh, thanks, brother. That's kind of you to say that. Well, thanks again, and guys, check it out, please. If you ride a road bike, because I don't think my butt could take it, but it sure looks like a hell of a time. So.
They make those bikes you lay down
you
in,
give
right?
me one of the ones the Amish ride with the seat and the 3 wheels. Maybe I could do that. Yeah, but all right, buddy.
Yeah.
Good to see you, my
Yeah,
friend.
same, brother.
All right,
Love you.
thanks. See you.